Okay, welcome back. So we're going to have Linda Kenny Bodden in a minute when we take care of wiring her up 9 ways to Sunday. But I do believe I got my boy, hashtag 4041, Gene Rossi with me. Gene, are you there? And if so, welcome to the show.
I'm here. Welcome to the show. Thanks for having me.
Okay, awesome. You know, I heard you almost weren't going to make it on this show. You got me very disappointed when I heard it, and then you got me elated. I was like a yo-yo yesterday when you told me you were going to be on, because today is a special day for me. You know, Gene and Linda, who's sitting to my left getting ready to get mic'd up here, it's my 30-year anniversary of being licensed to the bar. 30 years. I can't believe it, Gene.
Wow, and you got 30 more.
Yeah, hopefully. Hey, my dad's 86, so I don't even know what number he's on right now. He's got to be close to 60. But hey, listen, Gene, we got a lot going on here today, and one of these cases that we're going to be talking about, this Leon Jacob case, is really another one of these interesting cases, and this is a hit for hire case, and ultimately it's really broken by a person who is a bail bondsman, a Michael Kobish. We're going to go through the details of the case a little bit, but ultimately when he finds out that the defendant wants to actually commit some murders here, he calls the police. And they get the person who is one of the co-conspirators who confesses, and then that person who was a hitman who rejected the original deal to do the hit, he confesses to the fact, yeah, they wanted me to do it, I never went through with it, and then they do what we called before, Gene, like the consensual intercept. They get him to cooperate with law enforcement, and they wind up getting the defendants to be able to basically talk to them, and they say, hey, this is what Zach is saying, I outsourced this to my boy Jacob, I believe is the individual's name, we'll find that out in the clip, who happens to be a police officer, and that's how they get the cops in the middle of this attempt to commit a double murder in the case. So let's just take a real quick look at this bail bondsman's testimony and come back on the other end. We'll have Linda hooked up and we'll have some discussion.
In your conversation with Leon Jacob, it was apparent that Leon Jacob wanted Megan to go away, correct?
Yes.
And to go away specifically to Pittsburgh.
He mentioned Pittsburgh, yes.
And that was the intent, as you perceived it to be, initially, based on the conversations that he had with you, that he wanted her gone to Pittsburgh so that she would not be available for trial to testify against him, correct?
He wanted her, he didn't want her to testify against him, and he said, she can't testify against me. I want her taken back to Pittsburgh.
You believe that Leon was talking about killing the witness and associated with the assault cases?
I never made that statement.
All right. And as far as you know, he was just having a conversation with you in order to convince Megan to get back to Pittsburgh.
He didn't want her to testify against him, and he had paid somebody a lot of money to make sure that she wouldn't be here to testify against him, and he mentioned Pittsburgh.
All right. I pass the whip.
Okay, welcome back. Before we break that down a little bit, let me get to Linda Kenny Bodden's here. She's been here. She's got her earpiece in. She's got her microphone. Welcome to the show,
hi.
Linda.
What a beautiful set.
Yeah, well, the first time you were here, the dynamic trio is back again. And, you know, all of us here, especially myself, want to wish our condolences to the passing of your mom.
Thank you.
Who, from all estimations and reading the articles, was just a beautiful woman and obviously raised a beautiful daughter. So our prayers to you and your family.
And she wanted me to be right back here where I am, and I'm her daughter.
That's what she want you to do. Okay, listen, guys. We're not going to be able to talk about this testimony because, like I said, at this network, we are covering everything that's of importance over and over again. And Jason Van Dyke, the individual who was convicted of murdering Laquan McDonald, is in court today. Let's take a look. Okay, that's the cop cover-up trial. So let's just try to break that down a little bit. remember, that was a bench trial. We've had a lot of debate, especially with Linda and Jean, about whether it would have been better to go bench trial or jury trial with that. Nevertheless, it is a bench trial, and the judge has to render a verdict. We thought we were going to get that today, but what we're hearing is that the verdict is going to come out, in other words, a judge's decision, on January 15th of 19, and on January 3rd, there's some intervener that may be coming in the case. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but they're going to be coming in, and the people do not have to be there, the defendants, just the attorneys during that process. But nevertheless, we certainly will cover that, I'm sure, but on the 15th is when the big day comes as to whether or not these 3 police officers are going to be found guilty or not guilty in the cover-up of the Jason Van Dyke case, where he was convicted of murdering Laquan McDonald in that famous case that we covered, gavel to gavel, at the Law&Crime Network. And we got a lot going on here today. We're going to be moving quickly. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be back on the other end. All right, so we're going to be covering these fascinating trials, crystallizing the best of the best down and being able to break them down. But I want to tell you a little bit about Leon Jacob. I'm just going through my notes real quick. Leon Jacob and Valerie McDaniel hired a hitman to kill their former partners. They didn't know they hired an undercover police officer. We'll get to that in a second. The charge is facilitation of capital murder. McDaniel, during the pendency of these charges, commits suicide prior to her trial. She was actually a pretty prominent veterinarian, a very, very professional person. She had left a suicide note that said, "I've got 2 great loves in my life. I have my daughter, and I have Leon." Now, Leon Jacob is now the only person standing trial now that McDaniels is dead. She actually jumped off the 7th floor of the balcony of her home to her death, leaving him to face trial alone. Now, Jacob, we're going to find out, is kind of got a sordid kind of background and history of other domestic violences and problems. He was convicted of stalking. But the real plan here and the motive is that Jacob planned to kill Veritas to get his charges dropped because he was worried about not being able to get his medical license. And the deal was, and I always love this when I ask people this, how much can you pay to get another person killed? And he was working with a hitman to pay $5,000 and 2 Cartier watches and a computer to kill Megan Veritas. The guy takes the money, though, and this is where these things go sideways all the time. You're dealing with cheats and frauds and bad people. The guy took the money and he disappears, and he never performed the hit. He never performed the execution. So now Leon Jacobs, goes to this bail bondsman who you saw in that last clip, and he's looking for the bail bondsman to look for this guy, Zach, who he had made the payment to commit a hit, thereby bringing yet another person into this conspiracy. If it wasn't for these dopes, Linda, all of us wouldn't have jobs. Lawyers, judges, prosecutors, Indian chiefs. It's unbelievable. But let me move on. The bail bondsman is asked to find Zach, and he tells him that he wanted to take Megan out of the picture. So he actually tells the bail bondsman why it is. Essentially, bail bondsman gets it. This is no good. So the bail bondsman, and that's who you just saw, who happens to also be a councilman, so he's an elected official, he calls the police. The police get Zach, who was the guy who took the money but didn't commit the murder. They find him, and he confesses. And then he agrees, Zach, to work with the police, and they tell him... Zach tells him, you gotta love this business proposition, Lynn and Jean. This is the deal. Zach says, while he's being recorded, "Oh, I outsourced the job to another guy, Javier, as I understand it, who is an undercover police officer." So now he's gotten Leon, and in the world of an undercover police officer who knows how to ask the right questions and is now being recorded. And Jacobs says to the undercover officer, "Are we going to take care of both issues?" Both issues, wait a minute, we thought it was only the killing of one person so that he could get his medical license because she had a domestic violence complaint against them, i.e. Valerie McDaniel's ex-husband now is being included in this. And because he's such a good guy, Jacobs, he indicates the reason why he wants to have the ex-husband killed too is because he's just really not nice to Valerie, and he's causing problems with regard to custody issues with their children. So, you know, he wanted to get 2 for the price of 1, but they were like, no, hold on a second. If you want me to kill both of them, the fee now goes up to, and you just would imagine this, right? It goes double the people, double the money. Now it's $10,000 that you have to pay. This is all being done while the agents are recording this. And he is, and ultimately winds up in this engagement, and that is how we wind up to where we are right now. Now we're going to listen to a clip from some of the information, i.e. phone calls, phone searches, call history that were searched during the process of this, because, again, these guys can't help themselves but to go on electronic media, which has now become the #1 way that prosecutors and law enforcement officers are solving crimes. Let's get to it.
Were you also asked to search and compile a list of times that a specific name was entered into some sort of web search engine from that phone, the iPhone?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. And what name were you searching for?
Megan Veracos.
This is going to be page number 3 of State 43 I'm showing you here. This number on the left-hand side, is that a chronological number of the number of times you found that name searched?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as we go down the page, we see 9, 10, 11, 12, and it will continue on. How many times you saw that name searched on his phone in a given period of time?
That is correct.
Do you recall the time frame you were looking at in regards to how many times that name was searched?
I believe it was January 13th was the starting of 2017, and I believe it was February 13th.
Could it have been March yet?
March, I'm sorry.
Through the phone for specific information that may be relevant to this investigation and this case and the prosecution thereof. Did you find anything else that you thought might be relevant?
Yes, sir, I did.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 46 and direct you to the bottom here. And tell us what portion of this you thought may be relevant to this investigation.
There were searches such as tools for hackers, where it would show like how you would find a car.
For instance, at the bottom of this page here, it says, find a car via LoJack.
Yes, sir.
That's kind of an unusual search, correct?
Okay, so Lynn and Jean, just so we round out the facts of this case, he was arrested in 2016 and had to let him go. The victim was ultimately strangled and beaten to death unrecognizably with a cord. And so what do you think about this mishmash that we got going on right here with regard to this guy like contracting with Zach, and Zach kind of going to the bail bondsman, and them the police getting to Zach, and then ultimately they realize that this is what the plot and the plan is. And they break it down, and then they use Zach as a consensual intercept cooperator in order to get statements. Pretty good police work, don't you think,
Yeah,
Linda?
it's great police work. You know, I love Zach, Bob. I love Zach. You know why? Because what is he going to be charged with? Theft by false pretense? Oh, you wanted to kill somebody? Let me just give those to me, and I'm running away and saving their lives, you know? I love Zach.
Yeah. So Zach is, fraud, I think, betrayal is the lowest ring in Dante's Inferno, but, it wasn't murder, right?
No.
So, but murder certainly is punished a lot more than fraud, Gene, right?
Oh yeah. I'll tell you, this is almost as bizarre as the Denise Williams scenario, and I love how we got this undercover cop, Javier, I think it is, and they staged a kidnapping. This also will make for a movie and a documentary. I love it. I love it.
So what you're referring to, Gene, and we see a picture of it right now, is that they got these 2 intended victims to appear, as you see on the screen, as if they had been kidnapped and murdered, and then went back to the perpetrators, the 2 defendants in the case, and kind of let them know to see what their reaction was. It was really a well done police thing there. And so now we just listened to also the computer data download dump, in which They were looking up Megan Veracas's name. Over 277 searches were being done. And there's also more testimony in this case from a paralegal that actually is talking about it's amazing how much information is getting out there by Leon Jacob, and the creepy feeling of this paralegal with respect to, you know, statements that were made that were ultimately introduced at trial. So it's just like one thing after another. So really dastardly thing the guy was trying to do, but he was leaving footprints all over the place. Let's take a look.
Next day, do you go back to work the next day?
Yes.
And are you still working in the same place?
Yes.
What building are you located in, or were you at the time?
The Lyric Center, downtown Houston.
Okay. And did he return to the Lyric Center the next day?
Yes, he did.
Talk to us about that.
The next day he came back and again was wanting to find out if criminal charges had been filed against him for what, again, he stated that he had put his hand over Megan's mouth to keep her quiet. And then the story would change. It would go from that to he thought he had maybe busted her lip when he put his hand over her mouth to she bit my hand when I put my hand over her mouth. So again, we checked the records, and at that time there was still nothing there.
What did he want you to do next?
Keep looking.
For Megan or for records?
Oh, first for the records. Of course, obviously, we looked for the records. He wanted me to get in contact with Megan.
So what did y'all do that day?
On that day, we were driving around again, but this time he picked me up in a Mercedes station wagon.
And did he tell you whose vehicle that was?
Yes, he did.
And whose vehicle was that?
It was his friend Valerie, is what he told me, who I later found out was Valerie McDaniel.
During this time period, when he shows up the second day, why don't you just say, look, I'm not going with you. If you're scared of him, why don't you just say, you know what, buddy, I can't go with you today. I've got to work.
Well, that's a downfall of mine. That's what.
Okay, so these are the little pieces of evidence that the prosecution is trying to stitch. Not any one of these particular things is going to be of any great importance, but let's not forget, at a certain point in time, just to finish out this very convoluted story, so we're trying to take it in pieces, they ultimately, that is Leon Jacob, Valerie McDaniel, who ultimately killed herself, they meet Zach, who's the person they originally contracted with to kill and is now working with the police, with Javier, who is the police officer now, at a restaurant. So now they got them all in one location talking about the murder of both people, and that's obviously going to be very powerful testimony too. We're going to do a quick break. We'll be right back.
You did what?
Hid in a closet
Why did you hide in a closet?
because I was afraid of Leon.
What happened while you were hiding in that closet?
He came in and was screaming and yelling at Leslie and basically continued to yell and was looking for me. And he said, I know that bitch is here.
So he said, I know that bitch is here.
Mm-hmm.
Could you hear him saying that?
Yes.
Were you scared?
Very scared.
How long do you think you had to hide in that closet for?
It was about 5-10 minutes because Leslie had asked him to leave because her daughter was sleeping.
Did he eventually leave?
Yes.
How did that affect how you felt about your safety around the defendant?
I was terrified that he would come into his brother's home with his niece sleeping and say something like that.
What did you do after that?
Obviously, I stayed there and I got up early in the morning and left and found another place to stay.
Why did you leave Leslie's house?
Because he knew I was there.
Where did you go from there?
I spoke with my employer and I was able to get a room at the hotel, unregistered.
During this time period after you leave Leslie's and now you've checked into a hotel, is the defendant still contacting you?
Yes.
How's he contacting you?
At this point, I hadn't changed my phone number. I believe I changed my phone number a few days later, but he was calling, texting, emailing. He actually showed up at my place of work. He was calling the front desk at my job as well.
Now, at your job, where is your office in relation to, you know, we think of the hotel lobby. Do you work in the lobby, or do you work in an office off the lobby?
I work in an office.
You know, okay, Linda, you know, this is, like, again, like when I was prosecutor, I always used to say, today's domestic violence is tomorrow's homicide, and that occurred many, many times. So in that unit in the prosecutor's office, we had to take those cases very, very seriously because there is directly a correlation. So what do we have here? It was a long time coming. She tried to leave many times. She had to wind up hiding in a closet because she was afraid of him when he comes in screaming and yelling and saying, "I know that bitch is here." When there's a young girl sleeping in the house, she was terrified. The next morning, she indicates that she found a new place to stay, unregistered in a hotel. These are all the hallmarks of somebody who's really, really afraid. She still has her phone because she hasn't changed the phone number yet, but he's calling and he's texting, and this is like, again, one of those scenarios where, you know, it's a toxic scenario and something bad can happen. What do you think?
Absolutely, you know, and she said she was terrified. And remember, she was so willing to go along with the police immediately to be the victim, to show the husband, right, that she was dead because she was terrified. And we know that he could kill. He tried to kill her, right? And we know he's a bad guy, you know, his history, right? He had problems in the medical program in Grenada. He came out in 2012. He was arrested for allegedly burglarizing the home of the hospital administrator in Ohio.
He pled to a trespass on that.
He pled to a trespass on it, but still, it goes to show you that somebody has got problems, that he has this stalking ability. And for some reason, when he met Valerie McDaniel, it decided, well, maybe I have the perfect love. That perfect love, by the way, wouldn't be perfect. She'd be perfect for about 6 weeks after this killing,
right,
as you know, with his history.
And Gene, you know, we see this over and over again, and that's why we can't say more than enough that you cannot look at these kind of things as benign, and you need to reach out to law enforcement. I mean, law enforcement really saved the day here for her because she was on her way out, as was the other individual. And so what are your thoughts right now about these women typically, it's men sometimes as well, about what they can do to protect and save themselves from this kind of horror?
Well, I can't mention my client, but I'm representing a wife in a divorce. And what I've been doing is keep a good record, keep a log. We've gone to the police, we've filed a report, and you just have to be aware at all times of where you are and what you've been doing. I want to comment on Megan, though. The beauty of a trial is the right to confront and let the jury see the demeanor of a witness. And I was watching her demeanor while you two were talking, and you had great comments, and she looks in the witness box very scared. And it harkened back to a murder trial I had where one of the associates of the defendant, when she was in the witness box, she was literally shaking. And the body language of a victim like Megan is almost better than her words. And, you know, the jury picks up on that.
Gene, we talked about this in a previous trial, that the judge usually in most places at the end of the case reads a charge to the jury where they say, you could observe the testimony, observe the manner in which they're responding to questions. And you remember that case where they basically, like 30 years later, had it reconstructed and just read transcripts? You lose all that very valuable communicative things like you're saying. But what I found amazing about this, too, is I'd say, Gene, Linda, old school world, once they had Zach, maybe they do the consensual with Javier, they would typically kind of leave it there. But I'm seeing a new genre where they want to be able to block off the defense that there was renunciation, or it was only words, and they didn't really mean it. And they went ahead and actually asked these two folks, and the woman that you see right there, hey, would you mind participating in a staged kidnapping and murder of yourself so that we continue the investigation? And what that essentially is doing is showing that this is exactly what they intended, because they confront them afterwards and see how they respond to it. So let's listen to her talk about the actual setting of all of that up. And please, folks, kind of imagine if you're in this situation where you're being told that somebody that you're supposed to love you is trying to kill you, and would your mind make him believe you got killed? Let's take a look.
About the threat on your life.
When did you first learn that there had been a threat to your life?
It was again a Thursday. I think it was February 23rd, around 8 or 9 o'clock. A police officer named Officer Sharp contacted me and said, I'm a police officer.
I sustain that.
Without saying what was said, did an officer with the Houston Police Department contact you?
Yes.
And based on your conversation, did you end up meeting with some officers with the Houston Police Department?
The following day, Friday.
And once you met with them, were you concerned?
Yes.
Were you concerned for your safety?
Yes.
So what did you do in response to talking with those officers?
After I met with the detectives that Friday, my coworker made arrangements for me to go to Pittsburgh the next day.
Without saying what was said, did HPD contact you about returning to Houston?
Yes.
And did you return to Houston?
Yes.
And once you returned to Houston, did you meet with some officers of the Houston Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And did you receive more details about what was going on with their investigation?
Yes.
And as part of that, did they ask you to do something for them?
Yes, they did.
What did they ask you to do?
Sustain.
What did you do?
I got in a vehicle with the police officers and went to a location to take photos.
Do you know why they wanted to take photos of you?
Because
Asking for the mindset of the officers.
If she knows, Judge.
This action.
I think she can testify if she knows. So me.
because somebody had been paid to kill me and they needed that as backup. Or
So did they ask you to stage some photographs making it look like you had actually been kidnapped?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Did they take you to one of their locations and take some...
Okay, so what she's saying there, and again, another great police work there, is that they're telling her life is in danger, and essentially she's going to be setting up, and we had that picture, I don't know if I have it, there you go. She's setting up her own kidnapping and murder in order to go back eventually to the defendant to confront them like the deal has been done. Great police work, and can you imagine being this poor lady? That is a life-altering event you are not going to get over. But you know, this guy was a really unique character. He's I think that narcissistic piece that we talk about all the time, thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, thinks he can talk his way out of anything, because this guy is going to take the stand. Leon Jacob takes the witness stand. You can see him right there. And it's a doozy, folks. So you gotta stay tuned. We're gonna go to a break. We'll be right back.
How much money did you, approximately?
It was several $1,000s. I really hadn't discovered a lot at that time because, you know, it was kind of shocking to me that what was going on. I have since, after that, found, you know, more. But the initial thing that took my attention was there was a $500 paycheck that she wrote to herself out of our personal account on January 5th of 2017. Subsequently, the day I came back from visiting my children in Chicago, she picked me up at the airport, and you know, things seemed fine.
Go ahead. Let's see.
So we kind of laughed right from the beginning of this. It's like, you know, you just know where this is going. His lawyers are asking no question. Presumably they've gone over this testimony. Every now and again you get one of these kind of clients, and you know when you're standing up there that the sweat's going to start coming down that brow, because you just don't want the questions answered correctly. You want them to make a good impression of the jury. And so he says, what happened? And his quote is, I'll get there. You know when you're standing there as a lawyer, you're saying to yourself, I got a lot to get through, and this is going to be brutal.
You know, this is a tragic case because you do have a woman who took her own life, right? Valerie McDaniel. She thought somehow this guy was her savior, her love savior, and within 3 months she's dead. So everything he touches is terrible. But George Parnham, who is the defense lawyer, is a great defense lawyer. He's represented some of the best, and yet you can just see he has no control over this guy.
Yeah, and Gene, this guy is going to be great. He's going to be the gift that's going to keep on giving to us for a significant portion of the show. I probably have only had one time in my career where I had a witness on the stand, and after all the prep, and he gets it or so on and so forth. He was going to do the examination the way he wanted to do it. He was not answering the questions. In fact, I'm not even going to lie to you, the jury started like looking back, because I usually sit by the jury box, right, Gene? You know, the tactics so that the witness is testifying, and if you can hear it, they can hear it. And sweat, I mean, honestly, it was literally coming down my brow, my side of my head. And the jurors were looking and they were smirking because they knew I lost control of the witness. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh my God. First off, I have sweated in a courtroom from stress on several occasions. I won't mention a witness's name, but there was this one witness. She was so bad, I lost total control, and the perspiration is coming down here. And the other thing is, I usually had a problem with experts, my experts, that I prep them, then they get on the scan, they become Jekyll and Hyde, and they won't answer my questions. And I got to tell you, I will get to that, quote unquote, is priceless.
I had an expert one time in a civil case, Gene, that I cross-examined for 3 days. It should have only been 1 day, but the guy refused to answer the questions, but the jury was just laughing. But I found myself after the 3rd day saying, how can I get out of this? This guy keeps giving me more and more and more. The defense lawyer I saw at one point had his hands in his head. But nevertheless, these witnesses can be really brutal, and that's why you never know in a trial where your trial may blow up with a witness, with an expert witness, just do a terrible job. Maybe you could be a Dyke, get on the stand, maybe it would have been a hung jury. You talk yourself into a conviction. A jury is not a place where 2 + 2 = 4. It is a random process, and you can only approximate what can happen. But this guy, I'm telling you, he's an amazing dude. Let's listen to him talk about the split up between them.
We've heard testimony that she moved out.
She left that evening. She left all of her belongings there. So she didn't move out that night. In fact, I moved all my stuff out about 4 days later.
And did you also move some of her stuff out?
No, I left her clothes, anything that was hers, I left there. As far as I didn't touch any of her clothes or any of her toiletries or anything. I took my clothing and I took our furniture.
Later time you got back together with her, correct?
Okay, so these are little vignettes. What we got coming up, though, is him trying to explain the payment to the hitman. Linda, I've been following this story, actually, and it's interesting because the fiance is cooperating with law enforcement. He's given a statement. He's actually given a DNA sample. He's given his cell phone. I found it odd that they took a DNA sample from him. And I'll lastly say that the mother, and based on the victimology, that's what we would do as prosecutors. We looked at the victim's history, who she is not the kind of person that would just scoot off, number one, leaving her infant child behind. Clearly, he's a person of interest.
Well, there's no doubt. First of all, he's the closest to her. They have a child together. They're living apart, from what I understand. And her cell phone, from what I understand, also pinged, 600 miles away in another state where her mother is, but haven't heard from her. She's not the type to leave her child. And, when a boyfriend or a husband or a father of your child goes to a landfill, and it's not just to drop the few bags of garbage you may have, from Thanksgiving, that is suspicious.
Yeah, well, I can tell you for a fact, Gene Rossi, and you were a prosecutor at DOJ for close to 3 decades and trained a lot of people. We've had cases where body parts were disposed and either other evidence. They will find where that dumpster was, and they will crawl through that garbage. What do you think?
Oh, God. I teach, and trash runs are incredible. When officers don't need a search warrant, they just find the trash of a target or a suspect or a person of interest, and without a search warrant, because the trash has been discarded, you find a lot of inculpatory evidence. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so this is really a tragic case. We all know the fact that when a missing persons case starts to go out in time, especially past 24 and 48 hours, and they're not leaving a trace behind, which is very, very hard with cell phones and credit cards and things that we would use to track a person down with no motive to be leaving and very atypical for who they are. Unfortunately, it sounds suspicious, and we hope for the best, but I would imagine that's not what we're going to find out at the end of the day. So Another sad story. Guys, we want to go back to this case where we have what I refer to as the narcissistic defendant on the stand trying to exculpate himself, get himself out of trouble. And we all know as lawyers, prosecutors and defense lawyers, that this is going to be the #1 testimony that the jurors are going to be listening to. And it's not only important to have consistent testimony that makes sense, but it comes from the mouth of a person that the jurors can relate to. And this guy, not relatable.
What was the purpose of that meeting from your perspective?
It was to finalize some plans that I had had with somebody I had thought to be a private investigator, who we called Zach or Abraham, who has been identified in court here as Motaz Aziz.
Okay. Now, there was money they exchanged hands, correct, at some point?
At some point, yes, the officer was given some money.
And what was the purpose of that?
I had received a phone call from the Undercover at some point, and I'm not sure that we've heard that phone call here in court today, but he had told me that he needed some expense money.
At some point in time, there was a discussion that's been testified to you by you, not by you, but by the undercover officer about the discussion that he had with Valerie about her ex. Recall that?
I do.
And did you participate in that discussion?
I did not.
What did you exactly do to extract yourself from that conversation?
I left the table. I was previous to them talking, Valerie had, them even coming to the restaurant, Valerie had said she wanted to talk to Aziz and the guy will be called Adam. We met as Adam by herself. And that she said that when she wanted to talk to them, that she'd asked me to leave the restaurant.
And did you?
I did.
Okay.
I'm laughing.
Let me see if I have this straight. And you correct me if I'm wrong. What was the purpose of the money? We'll put the pauses aside because this is a central question, right? Guys, like in med school, is not a person who's not an uneducated person. And the undercover calls, and he needed money for expenses for some services. And he's not 100% sure. He was present, but then he left at a certain point in time. But he's present when the money is exchanged, covered by, did they say a towel or something, or a napkin, or laundry?
Laundry.
Because that's always a squared away transaction. Yeah. How many times have you been at the Olive Garden, and instead of getting your extra breadsticks and your pizza and your bottomless bowl of pasta, somebody comes in with some laundry and shoves in a couple $1,000s underneath your laundry? That's number one. And there was a convo about the ex. But he doesn't even really know why they were there. Linda.
Yeah, because he left because Valerie asked him to leave. And remember, he said, this is my favorite, I can rephrase my previous answer, my attorney, if you would like. So if the attorney didn't like what he was saying, which of course you couldn't like what he was saying because it was just a lie and ridiculous. I mean, he wanted to bring his attorney into now committing fraud upon the courts and rephrase his previous answer. Bob, you know what this is? I wrote this down. Hashtag Prison Express. Hashtag Prison Express. Bring your toothbrush.
Okay, I love it. Gene, and again, I may be off with the facts here, but before we even get into that conversation, if I understand this case, this is the guy who goes to the man Zach. The man Zach absconds and doesn't do anything. He's the one who goes to a bail bondsman to try to find them to do some work. The bail bondsman, who's a councilman, figures out that something nefarious is going on, goes to the police. Zach then cooperates with the police and gets a guy named Javier, who turns out to be an undercover police officer, and arranges this meeting. So Do you feel that this may fall hollow on the jury, that he indicates that when money was going underneath the laundry at the Olive Garden, he didn't know what this was about?
I love defendants like this because they are insulting the jury with their testimony, but in their bizarre mind, they think they're doing a good job. What he's essentially doing is Valerie took her life, sadly, and he's throwing her under the bus. Mm-hmm. She actually is the person who came up with this murder plot to kill Megan and her ex. Not him, her. And the pauses are just priceless. Priceless.
Yeah, Gene, it's funny, and Linda, we had Julio Briones on the other day, and he actually talked about, based on prison code, a guy who uses his girl as a shield, that's as he put it,
that's bad.
Is as bad, if I got his statement right, as a person who's committing pedophilic offenses.
That's right.
In other words, they look at that as a cowardly thing to do and a cheap thing to do to somebody that's to use a woman as a shield. There's the code, and that's exactly what this guy's doing. I agree with you, Gene and Linda. But let's listen to some more denials that he gives, because again, this guy's testimony is something that should be brought out in law school classes about. If this should happen to you,
don't take the client.
Well, first of all, you don't have to worry about the toothbrush. I think they provide them for you in state prison. So, but what do you do in order to prepare a guy and to prepare yourself when you have to go home that night and say, oh my God, I just got hammered by my client? Let's take a look.
You've heard some testimony here that you had conversations with the undercover officer Duran about wanting to kill Megan and McDaniel.
That's correct.
All right. Tell us your recollection of the content of those conversations, if they in fact occurred.
Well, I can't really give you a recollection of something that didn't happen. I never asked anybody to kill anybody.
Does the word kill, hurt, harm, in any way, shape, or form appear in any of those recorded conversations?
Not on my behalf.
I'm sorry?
Except for to exclude them from things I want done. I never asked to have anybody hurt, killed, harmed, kidnapped. I never asked for anybody to be in any way physically hurt.
Did you pay money at all for this purpose?
No.
All right.
Well, there was no purpose for me to pay money towards anybody being hurt, because I never asked for that.
Now, we've heard testimony about there being money that had been, I believe, transmitted to Megan or to the undercover officer. What was the purpose of giving the money to the undercover officer as far as Megan's concerned?
It had nothing to do with Megan at all.
All right. Well, who did it have to deal with?
It had to do with an advance payment on what Valerie and the undercover officer had agreed upon because of expenses that he needed to hotel and whatnot. For the time that he was there, he had explained to me that
Okay, what we're listening to is a defendant on the witness stand, and they're talking about these undercover conversations, and his answers are, I can't give you a recollection of something that didn't happen. That is when he was asked, did you ask to kill? He didn't ask to kill. He never asked anybody to be harmed. What I understand from those conversations, Gene Rossi, though, was that the undercover officer was talking about various things that he was going to do, like potentially inject them or harm them. So, yeah, technically he never asked them to be killed, but the guy is going through the manner in which he is going to harm these individuals. And I think to your point that you mentioned before, I think this is something that is really going to be distasteful in the eyes of the jury, because they're going to see this guy, like Linda said before, just playing word games.
You know, if this defendant thinks he's the smartest person in the room, if he really wanted to put forth a defense, he should have said this if he's going to be manipulative. you know, in the beginning, I wanted these people killed. When he took my money, my 2 watches and the computer, you know, I stopped that concept. But then Valerie started carrying the ball. If he stuck with that, maybe. But he's going all in, all out, that I had nothing to do with it. I never wanted to harm anybody. But I go back to what I said before. He thinks that he's impressing the jury, and it's just pitiful.
You know, Gene, we could also talk forever, and especially you and I who have trained prosecutors for many years, how we have to explain to them that they lose cases many times because they think they're the smartest person in the room, and talk down to the jury and make arguments that are just not consistent with common sense. I've seen many prosecutors lose cases because the jurors just didn't like the prosecutor. Not that that's necessarily a fact that you should consider, but that is what happens. And certainly out of the mouth of a defendant, they love to convict if they don't like the defendant that's testifying.
Yes.
We got to go to break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. So the defendant is on the stand. He's just kind of like all over the place in terms of his narcissism and being the smartest guy in the room. And that was direct examination. That's when his lawyer's asking questions. Can you imagine what cross-examination is going to look like? Let's take a look.
So when you were upset with Megan from taking money from the account, that's really kind of silly, right? Because she was the only one that was really putting money in the account, correct?
No.
She had a job at the time, right?
Yes.
She worked at the hotel, correct?
Yes.
She was the one who paid your rent.
She wrote the checks for the rent, yes.
She paid the rent from the money she made at the hotel, correct?
Incorrect.
She paid for your dog.
She bought the dog. Actually, she never paid for the dog.
She paid for your groceries.
She went to the grocery store, yes.
She paid for the groceries.
If you mean she went to the store and used our debit card to buy the groceries, then that's correct, yes.
Okay. And during the time that Megan lived down here in Houston, she was always employed, correct?
That's not correct.
And she was always bringing in money to your household, wasn't
That's
she?
not correct.
And would you agree with me that you all had many fights about the fact that she was frustrated that you didn't have a job?
You can characterize it as that, yes.
That she was frustrated?
Yes.
And that she was frustrated that she felt like she was the one that was paying for everything, correct?
Those were her opinions, yes.
Okay. And she was frustrated because she felt like you were sitting home at the apartment all day and she was the one at work bringing home money, correct?
If she wants to characterize it as that, yes.
She expressed that to you, correct?
A couple of times, yes.
And that's one of the reasons why you guys would fight, right? Because she felt like the division of what you all were responsible for wasn't fair.
That was her opinion.
Okay? And she expressed that opinion to you.
Sure.
And so when she broke up with you that night, she left you after you put your hand on her face, didn't you?
I never put my hand on her face.
So when you do you remember having a conversation with Officer Jack with the Houston Police Department?
I had a conversation with someone from the Houston Police Department. I don't remember the exact name.
And when you talked with that police officer with the Houston Police Department, did he actually call you to get a statement from you about what had occurred with the assault between you and Megan?
I guess you could characterize it as a statement, yes.
And did you give him a statement?
I did.
And do you recall telling him that the only thing that you did was put your hand over her mouth to keep her from screaming?
I did say that, but I didn't say I put my hand on her mouth.
You never said that you put your hand on her mouth.
I didn't say I put it on her mouth.
Okay, what did you say?
I said I put my hand over her mouth. In front of, I meant in front of, like this. I never put my hand on physically on her face.
Okay. So you disagree with the fact that you put her, when she says you put hands on her, you disagree with that?
Absolutely.
But you'd agree with me that after that night, just like you said, just like that, she was gone, right?
Yes.
And she didn't want anything to do with you after that, did she?
I'm not particularly sure you could characterize it as that.
I can't even, Gene Rossi over there, I can see Gene Rossi laughing.
Gene, what's going on over there in Virginia? What are you hearing from out there?
I got to tell you, I feel badly for the defense attorney because obviously the defense attorney had nothing to do with that answer. And this whole, who puts their hand like this on someone they're arguing with? What you do is you do this. That makes no sense. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning. He thinks he's clever. He thinks he's performing. He thinks he should get an Academy Award, but he's doing so poorly. This is just laughable.
Yeah, Linda, I would agree with this, and
Yes.
I mean these are prepositional arguments.
Yeah, you can't. Look, if you're the prosecutor, you can't ask for anything else besides this. I didn't say that I put her hand over the mouth, not on the mouth. And think about this. This is, I guess when he talked about killing his soon-to-be ex-wife with potassium chloride, he didn't really mean potassium chloride. He must have meant baby powder.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this is why one of the reasons why I love the Law&Crime Network, because our producers wind up like getting the best of these clips after these trials are over. I mean, it's one thing to handle a case gavel to gavel, and you get some great gems as you go along. But then when you can crystallize these cases to see the meat of what made each of them really work, it's amazing. Right. And this guy, this is why we're going to play so much of his testimony, because he was the gift that kept on giving. And I once said to a client that was also like, he thought he was the smartest guy in the room. I said, it's really crazy. You're brilliant. You're a genius. I don't know if he was, but you know what? You're going to really be shocked that those 12 stupid people in that jury box, those morons that you believe are going to put you in jail for the rest of your life. And how's that going to be? The smartest guy in the world wound up in jail by 12 dummies. Let's go to another clip.
Do you recall back on March the 2nd of 2017, texting Valerie McDaniel saying, "Did you know that you have been laid 44 straight days in a row now?"
I don't recall the exact date or what I wrote, but it sounds like something I would have communicated to Valerie.
And if that's correct, you'd agree with me that that would have put you sleeping with Valerie McDaniel just 7 days after you and Megan broke up, correct?
If the math is correct, yes.
Okay. So when you tell the members of this jury that you're heartsick over Megan, that's not really true, is it? Because it sure didn't take you long to move on, did it?
Matters of the heart and how you feel are subject to the way you feel at a moment. I mean, you're asking me to get up here and say that I'm some womanizer. That's fine. You can characterize me as that. It doesn't make me guilty of solicitation of capital murder. I have no problem sitting here and saying that I slept with Valerie 7 days after Megan and I broke up. But I'm not on trial for being a womanizer. I'm on trial for solicitation of capital murder. So you can assassinate my character all you want up here. It doesn't make me guilty of what you've charged me with.
I appreciate that, Mr. Jacob, but my question was, isn't it true that just 7 days after you and Megan broke up that you were sleeping with Valerie McDaniel?
I think he answered.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, again, this is unbelievable. I mean, you were, like I said before, it's not just the substance of your testimony, it's how you're coming off. And this guy, she's asking a legitimate question, the prosecutor in this case on cross-examination. The answers you tell a client is you answer yes or no if you can. If you need to expound upon that answer, you do it as tightly as possible to question. Do not be argumentative to the prosecutor. Remember, the jury is watching every single thing that you were doing. Not only is he not answering the questions and not following that sage advice, he wants to spar with her. She never said anything about you being a womanizer. That's fine, so I slept with her 7 days afterwards. I'm here on a murder charge, not for character assassination. This jury is not liking this. Linda?
Oh, no, he's not like. And also, I mean, he says it to them. If the math is correct, yes. If the math is correct, yes, you may be right. I mean, he is just unbelievable. I've never seen, quite frankly, a defendant like this who's taken the stand in all my career.
Yeah, I know.
Never.
I've seen argumentative ones. I've crossed some pretty argumentative guys.
But not this.
But this is just the uber arrogance, which I think is even worse than somebody just maybe agitated, upset. Gene, I got to be honest with you. If I were the defense attorney in this case, in the middle of direct examination, perhaps, probably, would have said, Your Honor, can I go to sidebar for a moment? I have a really bad tummy ache. I need to go to the men's room. Can you give me a couple of minutes? Or can I have a couple of minutes to talk to my client, which is a difficult thing to do. And if you have an opportunity to speak to your client, you want to look at them and say, I know you're nervous, I know you're whatever, but you need to calm down because you look like garbage in front of this jury.
And you know what? And this is why I love jury trials. You can guarantee that the jury is seeing his body language when a female prosecutor is asking him questions. I really believe he is annoyed that this female prosecutor is asking him questions, and you can just see if this is the way he's acting with the prosecutor. My God, how was he acting with Megan? It's unbelievable.
Gene, that is an awesome point that I have raised many times. I'm glad you did. Many times I've said, if that's the way the guy's acting here, you can only, and when his life is on the line, imagine what he's like in a dark alley or in a car alone with somebody. But guys, you know what?
Oh my God, what?
Gene, we got Mediaite coming up here. I love this segment that we do. The intersection of law, politics, and the narratives. I've been doing a lot of media on the Michael Flynn sentencing and the Trump stuff and the Mueller
Rudolph
stuff.
the red-nosed reindeer.
Rudolph, that's gonna be we'll get closer to Christmas. We're gonna talk a little bit about my problems with Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. But now seriously, we are gonna go to a quick break, and when we come back, I can only imagine what this segment is gonna be, because if you guys saw yesterday in the media, there were some wild things that were going on, both with regard to the Flynn sentencing, things I've never seen before. I think the prosecution and defense were completely thrown into a different direction. We got the Trump Foundation stuff. I don't know what media is going to come up with, but I'm going to guarantee you this. It's going to be good, because every one I've done, I have been fascinated at watching the different media narratives across the platforms. We'll be back after the break. We're covering the Leon Jacob trial. We have gone through the fascinating aspects of his examination, direct examination and cross-examination. Prosecutor scored some serious blood on cross-examination when she was detailing the calls that was being made to the undercover agent that he was trying to get to do the killings, about all sorts of things that he wanted to have done. He claims there were really more questions and banter, and he was leaving the discretion to the hitman, which I don't even understand how that's even a defense, even if that were true. But then, if you guys recall, we showed clips of some great detective work where they actually took the two supposed victims of this man and made a kidnapping scenario and a murder scenario and took pictures of it to give to the defendant, Leon Jacob. Let's listen to that testimony.
It's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit number 22. Do you remember Officer Duran sending you this photograph?
I remember him sending me something like that or similar.
So at the time, it was your belief that Megan Veracruz was somewhere zip-tied, correct?
Yes.
And it was your belief that your Megan Veracruz was somewhere with duct tape wrapped around her mouth, right?
Yes.
And in seeing this picture, you'd agree with me, at no time did you tell Officer Duran, whoop, time out, stop, this has gone too far, I don't want any part of this. You never said that, did you?
Not those exact words, I did not.
You didn't tell him stop?
I tried to delay him.
Mr. Jacob, my question is, did you tell Officer Duran stop?
No.
Did you tell Officer Duran, I don't like where this is going?
Not in those exact words.
You didn't use those words, did you?
No.
No. In fact, you are under the belief, while you're talking to Officer Duran, that Megan is somewhere in this city tied up, bound, duct taped, and you're having conversations with Officer Duran during that, right?
Yes.
And at this point, you also believe that Mac McDaniel is dead.
Yes.
You believe that Officer Duran has taken care of Mac McDaniel, don't you?
That's what he told us, yes.
He told you that at the Willowwick apartment, right?
Yes.
And he told you that as you guys went out on the balcony, didn't he?
Either the balcony, yes, somewhere in the apartment. He told us about it.
And after Officer Duran tells you that he's taking care of Mac McDaniel, Valerie actually excuses herself and goes back inside the condo, doesn't she?
Yes.
And that's when you stay out on the patio with Officer Duran, correct?
Okay, guys, welcome back. Linda, Gene, I'll start with you. What we're here, what's that? Gene, are you there?
I can't hear.
Okay, Linda, I'll start with you. So what happens is they give the picture of the kidnapping. If you show that picture real quick, hopefully our producers can show us that. That picture is shown to the defendant, Leon Jacob, and basically he never told them, hey, I don't like where this is going. He tried to gear the prosecutor. She was having nothing with that. Now, you're going to answer my questions. And there they are, duct taped. And he already knows and believes that Mac McDaniel, that's Valerie's husband, was already dead. So he knows one person's dead. He knows that she's tied up in that position and does nothing. I mean, what did they think they were accomplishing by putting him on the stand?
Well, that's one of the decisions that the defendant makes, right? Attorney can't control that. You have the right to whether you have a jury trial. You have a right to whether or not you take the stand. You have a right not, and that's one of the things. And he does. I mean, it's most amazing. Let's do potassium chloride. By the way, that's one of the three death penalty drugs they use when they kill people. Mm-hmm. He knows this. He wants to play with the word snatch, right? He wants to say that snatch doesn't mean kidnapped. Did you want them killed? Look at this. Pause. And by the way, the prosecutor kind of looks like his soon-to-be ex-wife, doesn't she? This must have really, really gotten to this guy. He couldn't answer it.
Right. So, I mean, guys, we went through, I'd say that if the prosecution didn't put on one other witness whatsoever in this case, and just the testimony of the defendant alone, that we were going to get to a verdict, and a quick verdict it would be. And there was a verdict. Let's take a look.
We've got to note it down on the court notes. Okay, very well. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Gidley, has the jury reached unanimous verdicts on both cases? Would you hand those verdicts to my bailiff? Would the defendant please stand? As to cause number 1543813, State of Texas versus Leon Philip Jacob. Will the jury find the defendant Leon Philip Jacob guilty of solicitation of capital murder as charged in the indictment signed by the foreman of the jury? Cause number 1543812. We, the jury, find the defendant, Leon Philip Jacob, guilty of solicitation of capital.
Okay, well, there you go, Leon Jacob. Not a surprise to us, but I'll tell you what will be a surprise. Sentencing will be a surprise, nor will his time in prison be a surprise. Like Julio said, use the woman as a shield who ultimately killed herself prior to trial, and he goes into jail with that attitude. Linda, real quick, what's he looking at?
He's looking at the death penalty by other prisoners. That's what he's looking at. He's not looking at what you would say the little spirit of Christmas is. What do they call you?
Okay, Gene, what about you?
I think his arrogance is probably going to be the solution that goes into his vein, and he will be killed.
The solution that goes into his vein, Gene. Rossi, give it to Rossi. The chance back all the way from the days of the basketball era. Great analysis, Gene. Linda, thank you so much.
Bob.
We got to go to a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.